Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 11th March 2023 and these are all the important articles from newspaper of today. Let us move to the first article of the day. It is about H3N2 flu. So, 2 lives have been claimed by this H3N2 flu. So, this H3N2 flu is nothing but seasonal influenza. So, there are certain types of flus like there is swine flu, there is avian flu, that is bird flu, and human flu. So, H3N2 flu is a human flu. It is not swine flu, it is not avian flu, it is human flu. So, it is just a seasonal influenza. And the symptoms of this H3N2 are similar to COVID-19. The symptoms are fever, cough, breathlessness, wheezing, and pneumonia. So, who are all vulnerable to this? Young children as well as old age persons with comorbidities. We saw during the COVID-19 pandemic that people who had comorbidities were more vulnerable. Similarly, in this flu also, people with comorbidities are more vulnerable. So much so that the 2 people who had passed away during this H3N2 flu outbreak, they had comorbidities. One of the victim had heart problem and another victim had cancer. So they passed away because of comorbidities, and this flu further aggravated the condition. But still, if we see, the numbers are very high. 3.97 lakh cases were reported in January, and February this number was 4.36 lakh cases. So one of the symptoms, that is, if the H3N2 flu seasonal influenza becomes severe, there is a condition called severe acute respiratory illness, SARI. So people get hospitalized because of this particular illness. Almost 15,000 people got hospitalized because of SARI. And government says that there are 2 flu seasons. One is January to March and another one is post-monsoon season. Though it has increased from January to February, the government is hoping that by March the cases will start dipping. So if we have to see specifically about H3N2 virus, because for the past 2-3 years COVID has been in news, and in last prelims there were some questions related to this diseases and all. So in that context, we have to know what is this H3N2 virus. So influenza viruses, they cause infectious diseases, and influenza viruses have 4 different subtypes: A, B, C and D. And within that, this influenza A is classified into different subtypes, and one of the subtypes of this influenza A is H3N2. So this virus not only affects humans, it has the capability to infect birds and mammals as well. So if we have to see from a multiple choice question point of view, this is very important for prelims. This table is very important. So influenza type A, I'll just change the color. Influenza type A, it affects wide range of animals including birds. And influenza B affects humans. Influenza C affects humans as well as pigs, but it is a rare type of influenza compared to A and B. These two are more common types of influenza, and influenza D affects cattle. So, most common type of A subtype. So, most common is the A subtype, and within that we have H1N1 and H3N2. These two are very common. Out of that, H1N1 is called the swine flu, and this viruses which affect swine, that is pigs, they can also infect humans. H1N1, H1N2, H3N2, these are all swine flu. And avian influenza, that is bird flu, we have H5N1. This was there in news couple of years back. These are all not important. You have to know H5N1, H1N1, H1N2, H3N2. Alright, so this much is enough from prelims point of view. The takeaway from this article is we have to know the types of influenza and which affects which. That is, whether it affects cattle, whether it affects mammals, whether it affects birds. All these things we need to know. Okay. Second article is about 33% quota for women in civic body polls. So, in this particular article, the most important thing we need to know is the legal provisions or constitutional provisions related to reservation in local body. So, we already know we have the 73rd Amendment Act. This is for rural local bodies, that is Panchayati Raj. Okay, and we have the 74th Amendment, which is for urban local bodies. So, the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act itself provides for reservation of not less than 1/3 of total number of seats for women. Then, what will be the reservation for women in case of chairpersons of urban local bodies? That will be provided for by the state legislature. Alright, so for multiple choice questions, in prelims we might get statement based questions. There might be a comparison between 73rd and 74th. That is, one is for Panchayati Raj, 74th is for urban local bodies. So, if we have to compare these two amendments, in Panchayati Raj institution, 1/3 of seats are reserved for women and 1/3 of chairperson seats are also reserved for women. And that is provided for by the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act itself. When we compare it to 74th Amendment Act, 1/3 of reservation of all seats is provided by the Act, but reservation at chairperson level must be provided for by the state legislature. Okay, so basically we need to know the difference between 73rd Amendment and 74th Amendment. Let me write it here. Okay, so 1/3 reservation. Reservation for chairperson. Okay, we have to compare this. Rural versus urban. So, 1/3 reservation in rural local bodies is provided by 73rd Amendment. 1/3 reservation in urban local bodies is provided by 74th Amendment Act. Reservation for chairperson, that is 1/3 reservation for chairperson level for women especially, is provided by 73rd Amendment itself in case of rural local bodies, and 1/3 reservation for women at chairperson level is provided by state legislature in case of urban local body. This kind of clarity must be there in order to solve MCQ questions of prelims. So this becomes very important for prelims. The news item, more than that, the background information is very important for prelims. Okay, now we will move to an editorial article. It is about AUKUS. What is AUKUS? It is a security partnership between US, Australia and UK. AUKUS. So US, UK and Australia. So there is an announcement that is underway which will determine the pathway for this AUKUS. So what Australia wants is they want nuclear powered submarines. So what is the implication with this? When Australia gets nuclear powered submarines, naturally, Australia is not a nuclear weapon state, which means Australia doesn't have any nuclear weapons. Okay, so the regional partners, the regional powers are opposing. Indonesia has been very open, and India, though it supports AUKUS, it is very much conflicted about nuclear powered submarines operating in the regional seas. See, other major powers also have their reservation in Australia getting nuclear powered submarine because of their membership in the AUKUS. So what is the reply of Australia for these concerns? So AUKUS is a technical arrangement. It is an arrangement for technical cooperation, but Australia says that Quad is a more normative grouping. It has a broader vision. AUKUS is just an arrangement. It's just a matter of convenience. And at the same time, Australia, when it gets nuclear powered submarine, it is not getting nuclear weapons. It is rather getting nuclear maritime propulsion. It is not having nuclear weapon. It is using nuclear technology for submarine propulsion. These are the arguments provided by Australia. So the other countries like India, Indonesia, the regional powers are opposing. Now what are the options left with Australia? So one thing, it can ask for US to build nuclear powered attack submarines for Australia. But the problem is US themselves, they don't have these many nuclear powered attack submarines so as to give away one to Australia. Even the members of US Senate are against this idea because they don't want to jeopardize the US national security, because SSNs are actually scars in US itself. So this first option won't work out. Second option is from UK, there is Astute class submarine. So submarines or vessels, they are grouped under classes. So Australia can acquire Astute class submarine from UK, but the design of this class of submarine is not a top priority for UK at the moment. And even if Australia acquires Astute class submarine, there will be difficulty in integrating the onboard combat system, because the Australian system and the US system, they are not very compatible. So in that case, if Australia gets UK based Astute class submarine, there will be problem in integrating onboard combat system. So this option would also not work out. Another option is to jointly develop, that is Australia, US, UK, everyone, these three parties will jointly develop a new nuclear submarine design. But the problem with this option is there are many concerns with respect to US export controls. So these are the set of rules and regulations. which govern US exporting weapon technologies to other countries. These norms are very strict and stringent norms. So if Australia wants nuclear propulsion technology, they have to find a way to bypass this, which is also a very difficult prospect. So these are all the options available before Australia. Now this is not important for our exam, but what is important is what does it bode for India? What are the implications for India? So Australia is one of the closest allies of US. Even with them, US is facing difficulties in transferring technology. So it is not that Washington doesn't want to help a partner. Though there is political will to help a partner, it cannot make room for a priority transfer of know-how to a trusted ally, because as already discussed, the US export control system is so rigid that even if there is political will, they cannot bypass this to help a particular ally. So if it is that difficult for Australia, then think of India. India has never been on the same footing in terms of relations with US as like Australia. So that is one another problem. Second thing is you need highly enriched uranium fueled reactors to run SSNs, which is the nuclear powered submarine. So if Australia wants this kind of highly enriched uranium, then it has to exploit a loophole in the international law. So in this we have to understand what is a non-nuclear weapon country. For that we have to understand non-proliferation treaty. So this treaty, it recognizes some countries as nuclear weapon states. Nuclear weapon states, and it recognizes only the P5 countries. P5 countries are the permanent members of UN Security Council. Which are the P5 countries? US, UK, France, China and Russia. So these are the P5 countries. So this particular non-proliferation treaty, NPT, it recognizes only the P5 countries to be nuclear weapon states. It doesn't even recognize India, which had nuclear weapons even before this treaty came into force. And India is not a party to the treaty. It hasn't signed this treaty. So whoever is not recognized as nuclear weapon state, they are the non-nuclear weapon state. So to this effect, Australia is a non-nuclear weapon state. So they cannot acquire highly enriched uranium for weaponry purposes, but they can exploit a loophole and they can get highly enriched uranium for submarine reactors from IAEA monitored stockpile. IAEA is the International Atomic Energy Agency, and they also look for non-proliferation only. So they maintain a stockpile. If we have to get highly enriched uranium from the stockpile, they will monitor that it is used only for propulsion purposes and it is not used to produce weapons. But if Australia uses this loophole, many other countries might also use loophole and they might start nuclear proliferation. They might start weaponizing themselves by exploiting this particular loophole. So the concern is proliferation might happen. If it is that difficult for a country with a stature like Australia, then it is also complicated for India to acquire this nuclear technology from countries like US, which are very advanced in this type of weaponry. So one practical option is to buy high power reactor from France. Now India-France relations are at an all-time high, so we can bank on France. But again, there is a concern of dependence on France for reactor fuel as well as periodic refueling. Add to that the restrictions placed by non-proliferation treaty. So all these concerns are there for India. So we have to watch what are the developments going on with AUKUS, and then we will get to know in a much clearer picture about prospects for India. So in this article we discussed about what is AUKUS and what is the future of AUKUS and what does this indicate for India as a country in terms of acquiring high grade weaponry and in terms of nuclear proliferation. That's it for this article. We'll move to the next article. It talks about the index for industrial production. So the article says that in January, IIP, index for industrial production, grew by 5.2%. So in this article they are saying that these particular sectors grew, these sectors witnessed a fall. That is not very important for exam. This kind of statistics will come every month. We can't go into the nitty-gritties. So in this case we will discuss what is IIP. So what does IIP do? It is an index which measures the changes in the volume of production of industrial products during a given period, and that period is 1 month. So this IIP is produced monthly by National Statistical Office NSO, which is under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. We have already seen about NSO in our previous discussions. So in this IIP, the industry groups are classified into two broad groups. One is broad sector, another one is use-based sector. Broad sector, under that we have mining, manufacturing, electricity, etc. In use-based sectors, we have basic goods, capital goods, intermediate goods. So they are used to produce something. Broad sectors are an industry in themselves. So that is how the sectors that are covered in IIP are grouped, and the base year for IIP is 2011 to 2012. So what is the significance of IIP? So based on the IIP figures, various institutions right from the central government to the state government, RBI, they all use this IIP figures for policy making purposes. And also it measures, this IIP, it measures the industrial output. So this can also be used for the calculation of quarterly and advanced GDP estimates, because GDP also measures the total output. IIP specifically measures the industrial output. So this can be used as a feeder data for GDP estimates. And under this particular IIP, there are 8 core sectors, and these comprise of highest weight, that is 40.27. In one of the past prelims, there was a question on which of the 8 core sectors has the highest weightage. So among these 8 core sectors, the 8 core sectors has highest weightage in IIP. Among these 8 core sectors, the highest weightage is there for refinery products, and the least weightage is for fertilizers. So there are 8 core sectors. I'll mention a technique to remember these 8 core sectors, that is CCC ferns. Ferns, we know it is a species, it's a plant like species. CCC, C for coal, crude oil and cement. CCC ferns, fertilizer, electricity, refinery, natural gas and steel. So with this, we can easily remember what are the 8 core sectors. Highest is refinery products and lowest is fertilizer. Okay. So now IIP has increased, but what holds for future? Now we have high inflation, rising interest rate, weak external demand and waning domestic pent-up demand. Post the pandemic, there was pent-up demand. Now that is also reducing. So it poses downside risk for industrial activity. This can dampen industrial activity. So this has to be kept in mind by policy makers in order to maintain or increase the industrial output. So from this, it is very important for prelims. We saw the in and out of IIP. Let us see the final article of the day. China helps Saudi Arabia, Iran to restore relations. So Chinese brokered talks helped in normalization of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and they will also reopen diplomatic missions. So in this context, we have to know what transpired, what led to closure of diplomatic missions. So the immediate trigger was that in Iran, the Saudi diplomatic mission was attacked by protesters. Why? Because Saudi Arabia executed a Shia cleric, Nimr al-Nimr. In order to oppose that, the Saudi embassy in Iran, that is in their capital Tehran, was attacked. This was the immediate cause for Saudi Arabia cutting diplomatic ties with Iran. But it goes much deeper than that. So if we see Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia versus Iran. So Saudi Arabia is a Sunni Muslim majority country and Iran is a Shia Muslim majority country. And these two major forces are engaged in proxy war in several theaters in West Asia. Right? Proxy war means they are not directly at war. They are supporting some other entities which are at war. For example, in Syria, Saudi Arabia is supporting the Syrian government and Iran is supporting Houthi rebels. So in Syria, government and Houthi rebels are fighting, and the Saudi Arabia and Iran are engaged in a proxy war through this. So this was the long-going conflict, and the immediate trigger was the execution of Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr. So this is for the background, but from prelims perspective, we have to know more about geography. So I'll give you a little glimpse of geography. So here we have some straits and gulfs in West Asia. So this is the Strait of Hormuz. So this is the Strait of Bab el-Mandab, and this is Gulf of Aqaba, and this is Gulf of Suez. Okay, so Gulf of Aqaba is at the tip of Israel. Strait of Bab el-Mandeb separates Arabian Sea and Red Sea. Strait of Hormuz separates Arabian Sea and Persian Gulf. These are all very important from geography point of view. So we have seen the important news articles. We will now discuss some questions. Okay, so these questions are from Prelims 2015. Consider the following statements. The Rajya Sabha has no power either to reject or to amend a money bill. This is correct. Rajya Sabha cannot reject, it cannot amend. It can only return with recommendations the money bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. Second statement, the Rajya Sabha cannot vote on the demand for grant. This is correct. The Rajya Sabha cannot discuss the annual financial statement. Annual financial statement is the budget. Rajya Sabha cannot discuss the budget? No. Rajya Sabha can discuss the budget, but they cannot vote on demand for grant. So this question asks about which of the statements are correct. 1 and 2 are correct. So B is the correct answer. Next question. This is also from pre-2015. Which of the following brings out consumer price index number for industrial workers? A. The Reserve Bank of India. B. The Department of Economic Affairs. C. The Labour Bureau. D. The Department of Personnel and Training. So answer is Labour Bureau. Okay. So they only publish CPI for industrial workers. Okay. Moving on to the next question. The terms agreement on agriculture, agreement on application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and peace clause appear in the news frequently in the context of the affairs of the A. Food and Agriculture Organization, B. United Nations Framework Conference on Climate Change, World Trade Organization, and United Nations Environment Program. So, these terms, peace clause, etc. are related to World Trade Organization, WTO. Agreement on agriculture is related to subsidies for agriculture. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures are related to export-import of agriculture products. Peace clause is related to suspension of these subsidies. So the answer is WTO. This is also in news recently. Don't think that it is from 2015. Even now, there are some problems with the governing body of WTO. So this question is again important. Last question of the day. Consider the following rivers: Vamsadhara, 2. Indravati, 3. Pranhita, 4. Pennar. Which of the above are tributaries of Godavari? So, Pennar is an independent river. It is not a tributary of a Godavari. So, we can eliminate these two options. Only A and D are remaining. Vamsadhara is also a tributary of Godavari. Indravati, it flows through the state of Chhattisgarh. It is a tributary of Godavari. Pranhita is very popular tributary of Godavari. Vamsadhara river, it flows through Andhra Pradesh. It is also a tributary of Godavari. So answer is A. So that's it for today's discussion. Thank you. This is Indumati signing off. Have a good day. Follow us on all the social media channels.